Welcome to episode 280 of the Grip Strip podcast, the NASCAR Takeover edition of the Grip Strip podcast. Normally, Philip Matthew is here with me, Josh Huffine, but he's out this week. So I called in our good friend of the pod, Joe Passero, to come on the show. So yeah, we're going to talk about just NASCAR stuff with all the happenings that happened at Daytona this weekend, at Cup and Xfinity racing this weekend. So yeah, we'll get into that in playoff preview. So yeah, Joe, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on. It's been a while. It's been too long. I was really excited to try to get on the show a few weeks ago, and then life happened, so I wasn't able to make it. So I'm glad to be here tonight. Sorry that Phil isn't here. Hope he's enjoying his time away. And I'm excited. I'm ready to get to the playoffs. It's been a very interesting year. I think there's a lot to talk about with the 2025 NASCAR Cup Series playoffs. I think there's a lot of interesting topics. I might have a few unpopular opinions about it. And maybe I think I might have changed my voice compared to certain things I've said on the show in the past. So I'm really excited to talk about it tonight.
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, it's been a wild season, I think, in a lot of aspects, with SVG going on his tear during the summer on the road courses, the debate between aero packages, whether we should have a diffuser, all that stuff. A lot of discourse among the fan base, among things, and all that. But now the playoffs have started now. So yeah, Ryan Blaney wins at Daytona. We were both there. We saw it at the Coke Zero 400. Really interesting race compared to what we've seen this year, I think, in super speedway racing, especially compared to the previous Daytona at the Daytona 500. I think just that 400, I think the 400 versus 500 mile difference makes a huge difference in the racing. That and the fact that there was a big one early on that wiped out a bunch of people. So yeah, that definitely made the racing more interesting with the pack and how much, I guess, maneuverability that they had. But yeah, Ryan Blaney wins. He started from the pole, went to the back, and then basically just hung out there for most of the race. And then 2 laps to go, he's in 13th place, and then all the shuffling started happening up front. Justin Haley tried to take the lead. Kyle Larson tried to get Eric Jones out of the way. He tried to get Ryan Preece out of the way up there. I think he was just trying to make sure that Alex Bowman, who got taken out in that big one, back on like lap 28 or whatever, try to get Alex Bowman into the playoffs. So that was definitely, I think, an interesting aspect, and that kind of just the line shuffled, and then Ryan Blaney was just pushing Cole Custer. Cole Custer tried to move down to block Justin Haley, and that opened the door for Ryan Blaney to get up there and take the lead, and then basically he just had to hold on at the end to get that win there. So yeah, I think biggest story outside of that, of course, was the playoff cut line with Tyler Reddick and Alex Bowman both not having a win and not having qualified yet. Reddick gets an incident on lap 18 there, gets damaged there, and that puts him in a bad spot. But then next caution, lap 28, Alex Bowman in that incident with Bubba Wallace, Kyle Larson getting into the back of him. Joey Logano took out Kyle Busch, amongst other drivers that were hopeful to make it in the playoffs. Gets into that incident there, and that takes him out of the race. So from there on, Bowman's on shaky ground, really nervous throughout it. And then fast forward to the end, we got all these playoff drivers or non-playoff drivers up front fighting for the wins. So yeah, what do you think of that race there towards the end with all these non-playoff guys, along with guys like Larson, Chase Elliott, who were up there and could have had a chance to steal the win there from those non-playoff drivers, and Blaney, of course, clutch moves there at the end to pick up that win.
Yeah, it was definitely a very fun and very interesting race. I have been going and been fortunate enough to go to a lot of the Daytona summer races over the course of many years, and even in the last few years, been able to go to the 500 most years. And I will say there's something about shortening the race, and it's also the way that NASCAR has broken up the stages, that it feels like the summer race now is more inviting to actually racing each other rather than racing the foot pedal in front of you. I'm not really a fan of the super speedway fuel savings. I think, the races where you don't see the drivers need to save so much fuel or feel that strategy is enabled by the stage lengths. The races like, Atlanta for the Cup Series, at least, as well as the summer Daytona race, have been fairly exciting, right? Drivers don't really have a strategic advantage to saving too much fuel. I think in the last stage, just because of the way it was broken up and how long it was, I think there was probably a little more fuel savings than what we knew in the grandstands. But nonetheless, you couldn't really tell. It was far more exciting than, right, watching a parade of drivers go 3 wide, a car length apart each, like we saw in February. So I was really excited about that. I think the quality of the racing just is much better that way. And I think especially the last two, right, the 25 and the 24 summer races were outstanding to watch and to enjoy. I was very focused in the middle of the race on the battle really for second place in points. Between second and sixth, there was only about 23 points to begin the night. And for drivers, while they were all locked into the playoffs, that's a big deal, right? Second place at the end of the regular season gets 10 playoff points for their efforts, and sixth place gets 5 playoff points for their efforts. So there was an opportunity there for a lot of drivers to either make or break what could end up being just a few point difference. They're going to maybe look back on that Daytona race and say, man, I wish we would have raced just a little bit better. Chase Elliott started the day second. He ended fourth. Ryan Blaney, I believe, started fifth, jumped up to second with how successful his race was, capturing not just the win of the race, but some stage points as well. Kyle Larson did very well getting stage points. Unfortunately, Blaney did better and ended up jumping him as well. So Larson started and ended the race third place overall with the points. And then you had Blaney, you had Reddick, who that was also very entertaining to watch, right? The battle between Reddick and Bowman, entertaining at least for the first 28 laps, right? It was very important to focus on which one of them would have a better race. Reddick had the opportunity at the end of stage 2 to lock in. I don't quite remember whether or not he met the margin, that 36-point margin over Bowman at that point. But with those two crashing out pretty early, and with Bowman really being out of the race, right? Reddick was able to salvage. They were able to keep going. With Bowman out of the race, it made the playoff picture pretty much as crystal clear as it can get. New winner, they're in. Reddick is in. No new winner, Reddick and Bowman, point blank. And I think when you have such clarity like that, especially for the non-playoff drivers, it opens up a world of possibilities because you can pretty much do anything because you know your back is up against the wall. And I think that's probably a big factor as to why 4 of the top 5 drivers were winless drivers this year because they knew they had nothing to lose. So go big or go home. And unfortunately for the second through fourth place finishers, they were about a car length and a half short of being in the playoffs. I really enjoy Daytona as the regular season ending race. I think it has provided spectacular action. I miss it being July 4th, but at the same time, I think the trade-off is phenomenal racing that we see. And it really, I think, is going to set, I think you're going to look back at this race, we're going to say that set the tone for what this playoffs was. It's an interesting playoff field. I think it was a very interesting race, a very exciting race, and I'm looking forward to the playoffs. And there's so much to talk about with this field of 16, right? You have drivers with the expertise and level like Kyle Larson, who won 10 races in the championship in 2021, who's got 3 wins this year and is the first seed in the playoffs. You've got William Byron. He's been in the Final Four the last 2 years. He's still looking for that first championship. Ryan Blaney, I think they're heating up at the right time yet again, and I think a serious threat to be dealt with this year during the playoffs. can Shane Van Gisbergen make his way through the playoffs? There's a road course, there's opportunity for him. And so, now that attention shifts to these 16 drivers, and it's not that the other drivers are chopped liver, but these 16 drivers are who's going to put on the show in the remaining 10 weeks this year.
Absolutely. I think, this playoff field has a lot of potential with the wide range of drivers, like you mentioned there. And going back to what you'd mentioned with the fight for second in the regular season standings, Denny Hamlin finishing in sixth place, which basically that's effectively a win right there, because that's 5 playoff points that he missed out on from not finishing second there, because he was also involved in that lap 28 crash there, and then also later in the day or in the race there. He had that issue slow on track a couple times and kind of parked against the wall, which that actually kind of did look a little suspect there, the way that he kind of just rested on the wall, because he had tire issues after that incident. And then later on, the incident with Logano, that was another suspect crash there because he just pulled onto the grass there. But losing out on 5 playoff points, that could come back to haunt Denny Hamlin later in the playoffs if something comes about an issue. I mean, I assume that I project him going to the round of 8 at the very least. We'll get into that later, but I think for Denny, if say he does get to the round of 8 and then the same problem happens at Talladega, and then that knocks him out, that could be the difference. So we'll see how that plays out here in the playoffs. But I think phenomenal racing throughout the event, especially after that lap 28 crash. I think, going back to what I said earlier, just the way that I think the fuel saving, because they don't have the extra 500 or 100 miles from Daytona from the 500, they're kind of able to just race more flat out, and plus, more maneuverability throughout the field. I think if they had a full field, maybe it would have been different. But I mean, still, even the past couple of years, it was still fairly phenomenal racing in the summer race there. But now the playoffs coming forward here. Now we move on to Darlington, and now kind of go back to real racing here. So now we'll see just how much this will play out over the next couple of weeks as we do the first round here with the round of 16, and we'll see which one of the 4 drivers in this field ends up getting eliminated here from the playoffs. So it was a really great race, and of course now we move on to Darlington. But first, I guess we got to talk about Xfinity here, talking about how Conner Zilisch was able to start the race. There was questions of whether or not he would be able to go out and race at Daytona, but he was able to make it into Daytona here for the Wawa 250, but then only able to do the first 14 laps or so of that race. And then Parker Kligerman, who was on standby, Dale Jr. called him up to be on standby for that race, and he was able to sub in for Conner and able to go out there and win the race. Joe, you were there. What was compared to Saturday, what was the racing like there? Watching that Xfinity race, just seeing the differences between the Xfinity Series racing at Daytona at night versus the Cup Series. I think can't hear you again.
All right, let's see if that works. There we go.
Got you.
All right, folks, technical difficulties on my end. It's been a little bit. I think, if you had asked me that question in February, I think I would have had a very different response. Quite frankly, the racing in Xfinity always feels pretty hard. You don't really ever watch that series, maybe once or twice a year, and you think, wow, these guys aren't, putting out 100%. They race hard in Xfinity because you got guys that's their step into Cup, to their dream, and they take that seriously. It was a really, honestly, for an Xfinity race, felt like a pretty big crowd on hand, which was great. Obviously, we had that delay at the start. There was some lightning in the area, and it stinks that you don't get to racing on time, but at the same time, it's for the safety of everybody. And we got to racing. We got the full racing. It was obviously not the same vibe because on Friday night for Xfinity, that was not their playoff deciding race, whereas Saturday, that's the main storyline. Who makes the playoffs and what fashion do they do it? Saturday night, or Friday night rather, I do feel like there were a lot of eyes around Conner Zilisch, that 88, Parker Kligerman. Right, it had only been announced a few days prior that Kligerman was going to be on standby, and it seemed that throughout the course of Thursday and Friday, it became much more clear that there was, in fact, intention that Conner Zilisch was not going to finish that race. Obviously, given the unique nature of his injury, the fact he's even in the race car so quickly after is impressive, to say the least. But I think they realize, right, they don't want to put him in a situation where he's going to potentially be wrecked. Daytona, a lot of vicious crashes we've seen over many, many years. And if you already have an injured driver, there's no sense in putting them in that position. So that was a very wise, very veteran move. I can't imagine it felt great for Conner to be on the pit box and watch his car go around, knowing what he had. Obviously, he had a winning car and a winning team. But you got to feel good, right? He'll still be credited with that win. So he'll take all the playoff points and all the points towards the regular season that Kligerman was able to accumulate from that race. He is still the regular season points leader, only a few points over Justin Allgaier. It's been a very close battle between the two of them. Sam Mayer, I don't believe, fell very far behind either. They're putting on a show in Xfinity. I will tell you, there have been some weeks where I'll watch the Xfinity race and I'll pay attention to the Cup race, but if I got to do other things and I have to do other things, the Xfinity drivers, they're young, they're hungry, and I think the way they race really shows that. You don't see a lot of fuel conservation in Xfinity. I think the fact that they have shorter races probably allows them to not need to race that way very much. But it's been quite a dogfight this year with Xfinity. I'm very excited to see how their playoffs line up. Conner Zilisch having a big weekend. I know he started the race, didn't finish the race, but getting that credit for the win. Parker Kligerman, in addition, getting that first Xfinity win. Probably the first driver to win the same track twice in the same year in two different series to not actually be scored the winner. And a big day for Conner the next day with his news that he'll be driving for Trackhouse full time in 2026 and beyond. So got to give it to that young man, right? He is an impressive talent that you only see once in a while. And, I more normally say, I don't know. I think maybe, these drivers, they need 2 years, especially when they're as young as he is. He's only 19. 2 years between, the trucks and Xfinity minimum. But when you have a talent like Conner Zilisch on your hands, it's very difficult to justify not moving him through the ranks at the rate he is rising. So it's been very exciting to see him watch. Allgaier, I think, has been better than he was last season, but I think the competition has gotten better as well. So it was an exciting race on Friday night. I'm very excited to see what the end of their regular season has. I believe that they ended in Bristol in a few more weeks.
Yep.
And I'm really excited to see how those two junior motorsports teammates, as well as Sam Mayer, how they put on the show in Xfinity as we approach their playoffs as well.
Right. Yeah, I think, that was definitely an exciting race to watch. And I think there was another factor in that, of course, with, Austin Hill at the end of that race. He's always been a factor at super speedways, but they kind of, junior motorsports cars kind of shuffled him out there towards the end, and he wasn't able to be at the front like he usually is at these races. And then, you saw him at the end there kind of try to fight his way back to the front, and then was unable to do that and kind of touched off that last wreck there at the very end of that race there. So, Austin Hill once again kind of showing his face here in the Xfinity Series. But, going back to Conner, I don't think, with him going to the Cup Series next year, which obviously everybody knew that, but I don't think there's ever been a rookie driver that may have already had the accolades that he's had. And of course, SVG has had a lot of accolades, and he is the rookie right now. But obviously, we don't really view him as a rookie. But Conner Zilisch in the Cup Series will, truly be a, rookie here competing in the top level for the first time of a major series. And, with his accolades that he's had from road racing, right? The 24 hours class winner in LMP2, and then the 12 hours at Sebring winner there, and then now having won 7 races here in Xfinity this year, and potentially maybe a Xfinity championship. We'll see, but certainly he's arguably, I mean, he's definitely one of the favorites for that. There, like you said, there is a once in a lifetime talent, and I think he's one of those guys, and there's a reason why he's going up here to the Cup Series so quickly and everything. So I'm very much looking forward to how he's racing next year in the Cup Series. This year, haven't really paid attention too much to him, admittedly, in the Cup Series, except for the couple of road races that he was supposed to do. Obviously, he missed Watkins Glen due to the injury. Coda got taken out early there, and then I think he also competed at the Coca-Cola 600 and then Atlanta there, but wasn't able to follow him too much there. And I know he has talked about how different the Cup car is from the Xfinity car, so that is going to be a interesting aspect next year, how he adapts to the next gen car. Obviously, he has kind of, I guess the next gen car is kind of similar in platform to the LMP2 GT3 cars that he's competed in IMSA. So we'll be interested to see how that experience kind of helps him with the Cup Series, with the next gen platform being on the independent rear suspension and all that stuff. So we'll see how he does full time and being in a Trackhouse car, which they haven't had the best of years this year. They've come on recently, of course, but they've been kind of down on speed for a good portion of the beginning of the year. So we'll see how he's able to do next year there. But on the other hand, Parker Kligerman, this guy could, I think he could be like what Justin Allgaier is in the Xfinity Series right now, as that veteran driver that should be helping the field and kind of being that veteran presence. If he was able to get a ride, which it's sad that he isn't able to do that, and it's actually more viable for him financially to go be a TV reporter for CW and NBC than it is for him to drive Xfinity or drive the Truck Series, because I think the talent level that he has, obviously he wasn't able to make it in the Cup Series and everything, but I think for what he's able to do, I think he could be like that Justin Allgaier role. And I think in his limited showings that he's had in the Xfinity Series, and last year, of course, had the win kind of taken away from him at the Roval in the playoff there last year. I think he could kind of be that veteran presence, which I wonder if Junior's thinking, because Justin Allgaier, I don't know how much time he wants to still race here in the Xfinity Series. You assume he's there for a good while, but if he isn't, possibly maybe even have Parker Kligerman jump into that ride, or maybe even the 88 car if they decide not to go with Daniel Suarez, which I think most people are thinking he will. So that was kind of my thought on Parker there. I don't know if you had that same thought as well or not.
Yeah, Parker, I'll be honest, he, in my mind, when he was in his full-time years in Xfinity specifically, but even when he ran trucks a little more frequently, he has never been in the best equipment. Hands down, right? The 75 in the Truck Series particularly, not great equipment. You'd see any other driver go into that car, you'd be lucky if they get a top 10. All of a sudden, Parker's in the car and they're capable of winning. In Xfinity, right? I think last year they had a great season. It was a shame what happened at the Roval to them. That's a racing, unfortunately. It was a shame what happened to him this year earlier at Daytona. That's a shame, unfortunately. Quite frankly, I feel ashamed that he's not being credited in some sense with the win. I think between JRM and Conner Zilisch, they're handling it well, and they are giving him the credit. In fact, I saw something to the fact Parker Kligerman said he was not particularly a trophy guy, so he was okay with Conner getting the trophy so long as he got to keep the checkered flag. And that's pretty generous of him in my mind. He ran most of the race. He won the race for that team. I would think he probably won the trophy. But the reality, I think you got it spot on. I think the reality of the situation, Allgaier may only have a few more years left, right? Harper is getting older. She maybe only has a few more helmets to design for her dad. And, Justin is getting to that age where he may decide to step away, and he maybe wants to, if he wants to stay in racing, take on a different role potentially with Junior Motorsports with another team. I think as a veteran, he offers a lot of insight, but you do. At any career, you get to the point where you have to face the music, and retirement looms, and especially in sports, and especially in racing, maybe that retirement age is a little younger than, most of the rest of the world. And for Justin, I mean, he's at the top of his game, right? Coming off of the championship last year, being a series championship competitor again, as he has been for many, many years with Junior Motorsports now. But you have to wonder, right? At this point, a lot of his contracts seem to be 1-year contracts. And there will be a point where that's that question of whether or not he'll renew. Would I feel pretty confident in saying he'll renew in 2026? Yeah, there's been no retirement talk. I would quite frankly be surprised at this point if he said that this year was going to be it, right? But you have to think, right? Is there a consideration, because we know at least the 88 car is going to be open next year. Is there a consideration that Dale Earnhardt Jr. and Parker Kligerman are going to have conversations? I think Parker has done exceptionally well for the equipment he's been in. He got in a good car. He kicked everybody's ass. I think that shows where his level of talent is. And I definitely think he could, kind of step into that same role that Justin Allgaier plays, the veteran of the series who maybe doesn't necessarily feel like they have to go cup racing, right? Maybe it's more fun for him to be in Xfinity. And he's a great TV broadcaster too. I enjoy him on the broadcast. So, Kligerman's got the right stuff. I don't think maybe the right circumstances have played out over the course of his career for everybody to necessarily see it. But it's funny because he is probably one of the most well-liked drivers, one of the most highly regarded drivers who doesn't actually have a full-time driving role, right? And I could definitely see him having a say in who takes over the 88. I'm not totally sold that that'll be Suarez's ride next year. I want to wind back to something you said, since we are on the topic of Junior Motorsports. You'd mentioned Austin Hill a little bit earlier. One thing I have noticed, and I noticed this on Friday with both Austin Hill and Jesse Love, still performed very well. I think the rest of the field is catching up to them. Junior Motorsports had a dominant night, right? They got both stage wins. Sammy Smith, Justin Allgaier captured stage wins. Kligerman, Zilisch obviously went on to win the race. And unfortunately for Carson, just struggled there. He had some issues throughout the night. And JRM as a whole, 1, 2, 3 to end the race. An impressive showing. I'm not totally sold that makes them the new super speedway favorite, but Hill and Love did not put on nearly as dominant of a performance as they have in previous years, the previous races. I mean, last year, Hill in the February race, he basically, they tore up a good chunk of the nose and the fender. They repaired it. They went out and won the race. I do think the competition's starting to catch back up to them on the drafting tracks. And you see this cycle go through for a few years, right? You see it in Cup, you see it in Xfinity. Colleague was very good for a handful of years. JRM was good for a handful of years before that. After Colleague, it was Richard Childress Racing. So maybe that cycle is naturally starting to cycle back out or around. You see the same thing in Cup, right? DEI was good for so many years. After they were done, I don't quite remember who was the dominant team. I feel like maybe there was a little more parity during that time.
I think Hendrick was the team that kind of took over.
Yeah, you see a lot of Hendrick cars. Penske got real good for a good chunk of time. I don't think the results showed as much, but Penske was very good at Daytona and Talladega for that 2015 to 2018 time frame. And you have drivers from those teams that are still individually good, but that team dominance at these types of tracks it cycles out just naturally after some time, right? You get a team that finds an edge, they exploit it, the rest of the field catches up. One team then jumps ahead and exploits their advantage, and it's the natural cycle of racing. So I don't know that I would say JRM is quite there, but they, if I remember correctly, did relatively respectably compared to Jesse Love and Austin Hill in the February race. Got a little bit of bad luck, got involved in a few accidents. But you got to wonder if this is part of it, right? JRM, I think, has a good group of drivers. They're young, they're hungry, they're talented. Maybe all guys young at heart. Anybody that talks to him knows that. And, you got a good group of drivers, and you got to wonder if that's a factor in it. But, Parker Kligerman, I'm buying his stock right now. I think there's people missing out. I don't know. Maybe there's a level for him personally where he doesn't necessarily feel like that's what he wants to do anymore. Maybe he's happy in his new role, being more hands-on in the broadcasts. But you have to imagine there's got to be opportunity for him out there. There's no way you can pass up on a talent like Parker Kligerman.
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely agree there. And I mean, yeah, he can, if he wants to, he can continue being a good broadcaster. He's done a phenomenal job for CW and NBC, and continue being part-time driver in the Xfinity Series, I guess, in trucks. And he's also doing part-time in IMSA, racing at the Lamborghini GT3 car there. So, yeah, I mean, there's tons of opportunity there for him, and it doesn't even have to be the 88 car, because heard rumors on online on Reddit and other places that potentially the Carson Kvapil may be going to Penske, and Penske is going to reopen their Xfinity team there. So, and he's going to jump over there, and so that may free up the one car as well. So maybe Junior gets both Suarez and Parker Kligerman. That would be an interesting pairing there. And then I guess Sammy Smith still be in the 8 car, and Justin, assuming, still be in the 7 car. So that could be a combination there for next year. But we'll have to wait and see if how that comes, because it does kind of shock me that Kvapil would go jump to Penske, but maybe Penske has an opportunity for him in the Cup Series potentially, or something. Maybe there's a bigger avenue, and it does bring for Ford a developmental driver that they could have, because they don't really have anything in that pipeline. So yeah, we'll have to wait and see in that and everything. So yeah, we'll get into the news, I guess, of the week, which we kind of already touched on with Conner Zilisch there going to the Cup Series next year for in 2026 for Team Trackhouse there. So obviously going to be a candidate for Rookie of the Year there, and taking over for Daniel Suarez there. So yeah, we'll see how he performs there. Also, the other big news of the day from Saturday was the announcement that Colleague Racing is going to be entering the Truck Series with Ram there. So Dodge is basically back in NASCAR now with that announcement there, and they're putting up 5 entries, which that's quite a lot there. I'm kind of shocked at that number. Normally you hear like 1 to 2 entries or 3, but apparently it's going to be 5, which that's going to be a huge deal there, and potentially maybe that's their path back to the Cup Series there, but we'll have to wait and see there. But I guess Colleague, obviously drivers to be determined there. I mean, of course, one driver that could be in that is, I think, if he wants it, is Cletus, but we'll see if he wants to pursue a full-time truck career there, but because it's there for him if he wants, I think. But the interesting aspect that is that Colleague competing in Xfinity and in Cup under Chevy, and now they're fielding Dodge in Truck Series. So that's going to be an interesting kind of conflict of interest there that they're going to have to navigate throughout the next coming years there. I guess they said they're going to separate the two operations so that they can't, technology from Chevy won't mingle over to Dodge, and Dodge Ram won't mingle over to Chevy. We'll have to, I guess, look at how that plays out. But yeah, the Truck Series kind of getting new life there, which is interesting because they could be going to spec in a couple years. No idea if that'll come to fruition. That was what Denny said on his show the other night. But yeah, it does bring in new life into the Truck Series with potential for more drivers in that, and then also I think kind of bringing the manufacturer presence up from Chevy and Toyota there, with Ford having like only 1 or 2 entries in the Truck Series. So yeah, I think it's definitely good for the series, and hopefully this means that Dodge enters a car. I don't know what it will be, because the Charger is seemingly just going to be an EV now, so maybe that's the path there. But looking forward to seeing what Ram does here in the next couple of years. And this is kind of similar to what they did when they got back in 2000, is that they started into the Truck Series, and then they matriculated their way up into Busch and Winston Cup back in 2000, 2001.
Yeah, if I recall correctly, I feel like this is pretty much what Toyota did as well. I think they started in trucks either 2005 or 2006. Got into Xfinity and Cup. 04. Okay, wow, so that's much earlier than what I remember. Oof. I'm old now. Not that old, but and then of course, got up and then into the Cup Series for the start of the 2007 season, fielding cars with Michael Waltrip Racing and Red Bull Racing. And it's definitely, I think it's healthy for the sport. I think it's great that they're getting more attention from different manufacturers and different auto groups. I think that's healthy, quite honestly. It's been a long time since we've had a 4th manufacturer on the entry sheets, and you almost kind of wonder, Chevy, Ford, and Toyota with less presence from outside manufacturers, is it almost intimidating for any manufacturers to begin to want to back teams in the sport? And does that drive away attention? But I think the Stellantis group definitely has the right idea. I think they probably have a larger plan than what we know. I do know that with the Rams, they're bringing back the Hemi V8s, and you have to wonder if that's going to translate, if they're going to potentially make a street car, a Charger, or a Challenger that has that power, that engine in it. And if that's the case, do they field either the Charger or the Challenger? I would assume the Challenger probably be more likely, especially in Xfinity. They've already had a Challenger race car with this generation of Xfinity car. I would think that would probably be the more likely option. With Cup, in a few years, maybe the Challenger, maybe the Charger, maybe there's a new model that will show up. Stellantis owns a few different brands. They don't even have to go with Dodge, quite frankly, if they don't want to, because I think at this point in their branding, they've separated Ram enough where we understand it is no longer the Dodge Ram. It is just the Ram. So it'd be very interesting to see long-term what happens. As far as for the short term, the here and now, I did think it was interesting that they said 5 entries. Now, I also found it very interesting they said it was not, they didn't say it was going to be 5 full-time entries. So you have to wonder exactly what their plan is, right? Are they going to field 2 or 3 full-time cars, and then from there, maybe have 1 or 2 drivers pop in just to see how it feels? We don't know that. Well, I'm sure we'll get some clarity in the coming months from that. I think it'll be a super interesting and strange dynamic having 2 different manufacturers fall under the same umbrella, the same organization. I don't know the last time that happened. I feel like in Cup, Rick Ware, they leased a charter from Richard Petty a few years ago, so they had a few Fords and a Chevy back when Petty was under the Chevrolet umbrella. Before that, I don't even remember.
Bill Davis Racing, right?
Probably. It's just so ingrained, it seems like, in the culture of NASCAR racing that if you field teams in multiple series, they will be with the same manufacturer. Understanding, of course, this is a unique situation, and obviously they've got to start with a team to get in. And I think Colleague Racing is probably a great team. I think Colleague is a team that overall probably could use some help. I think Ram wants to find a team that they can get in on, right? Because they're not going to get in with the top tier team. Those teams like Thor Sport that wins races, teams, who, the Tricon garage with Corey Heim, they're probably not going to want to switch their allegiance for Toyota because they have a really good working relationship. They're very successful with what they do, and they have a very strong partnership with their brands. Kaulig, on the other hand, who's just entering trucks, who maybe in the future could use some help. I think they are a great team to start with. I think that's an absolutely brilliant decision. How that will all work out, I don't know, and I will be honest, I would fear that on the Cup and Xfinity ends with those programs, Chevrolet may choose to withhold certain information. I know that was something that Legacy had made very clear, that they felt that after they made the announcement they were switching to Toyota from 2022 into 2023, I believe it was. They felt pretty strongly that Chevrolet was withholding a lot of information, a lot of knowledge and resources from them, which contributed to not relatively desirable performances. That may have been 2023 into 2024. I don't quite remember the timeline of that, but you have to wonder if that's a situation that's going to happen. I mean, Kaulig is already not a shining star in the Cup Series, and they've, quite frankly, been less than stellar this year in Xfinity as well. Obviously, they're moving some pieces around. They released Josh Williams. They had Haley in the car this past weekend. So, I think getting some of their drivers back, maybe taking a step back, will be helpful for them. I don't know. Maybe they see this as a long-term gain, short-term loss. I'm not quite sure what the mentality is, but it'll be interesting to follow for sure. I think it's probably a good move for both groups, both for Ram and for Kaulig for the long term. We just have to wait a few years to see what the overall gain for both organizations is. But I definitely do think this is a stepping stone. I think the Stellantis group, like I said, regardless of whether or not it's Dodge, I would imagine it would be Dodge. But if it's Dodge or not, whatever brand they do end up choosing to introduce into Xfinity or into Cup, I think this is their first step. I think it's very likely that they build a healthy relationship with Kaulig, and that becomes the flagship team for Dodge and Ram, very similar to how Enverham was for many, many years.
Right. Yeah, and I think, for Ram or for Dodge, if they decide to go back into the Xfinity and the Cup Series, I think one interesting thing there is, especially if they go back into Cup, is it could allow for the creation of a new charter there. So I think that's definitely something to look out for, especially with the whole charter deal going on right now, which will segue into that for a minute here with the latest piece of drama, I guess, in the 2311 FRM lawsuit against NASCAR for being a monopoly there. So, of course, NASCAR, the big news item this week, they do have a hearing tomorrow on Thursday regarding the injunction, granting a new one to give back the charters to the teams until the lawsuit goes to court. But now NASCAR says they intend on selling those charters to another team. They're saying that there's one owner that really wants a charter, and we'll see who that may end up being. But they say they want to sell the charters, and now 2311 and FRM say that if that happens, that they won't be able to run a business, basically. So that could mean the end of their teams if those charters are sold, and they are unable to carry through with the lawsuit. So that's going to be a really bad deal, and I think it's bad business for NASCAR to go and do that. And I don't know what your opinions have been about the lawsuit and everything. I've kind of it's really hard to say for me, because I think on one hand, I think 2311 and FRM, I think they're correct in a lot of their statements, but I feel like there have been times where I think they've been overplaying their hand here, trying to win the lawsuit against NASCAR, and I think NASCAR has also kind of done the same deal. And I remember there was a quote from a judge that's basically said, "You guys need to settle now because it's going to get really ugly if you guys go to trial in December." So, which that's the paraphrasing of that quote there, but yeah, in addition to them going out of business potentially, allegedly Tyler Reddick has filed for a breach of contract per Jenna Fryer on Twitter, although she did delete that tweet. So that's either official or, she's taking that back, whatever. She put that out there. And so that's also out there because I think part of their contract and Bubba Wallace and all the other drivers' contracts is that they have to be part of a charter team to compete, and because they don't have a charter, breach of contract there, so which doesn't necessarily mean that Reddick's gonna just bounce from 2311, which that'd be huge, if he did that, because he's I think another once in a lifetime type of talent there that could really do anything in a good ride there, but yeah, a lot of drama going out this week on that end. So, yeah, let us know what were your thoughts on those storylines from that lawsuit.
Yeah, I will say I'm getting a little bit of a headache trying to follow this lawsuit anymore. I either want them to settle and spell it out for me. I want them to go to trial and fight it out because it has been so tumultuous. I studied in college, which, again, at this point feels like a handful of years ago. I studied a little bit of law. So I understand a few things of what they're talking about. I don't understand it to a T. I will say I agree with you in the fact that I do feel like 2311 and Front Row, I feel like they're in the right. I agree with their sentiment. I agree with what they're saying and the premises they're standing on. I do also feel like NASCAR has very smart people in line, and I do feel like they are potentially legally just in line enough to where 2311 and FRM may not be able to do anything. And I do. At this point, right, they've had enough time to settle where I think if they felt that they needed to settle, that they would have. And I will be honest, I, to some extent, feel like 2311 and FRM, if they had the upper hand, I feel like they would have attempted to settle because I think there's more for them to lose than there is for NASCAR to lose. And I think as we have gotten further along in this process of hearing the news that comes out, I think that has shown. I'll be honest, as much as I would love to see NASCAR maybe get some new life, and while maybe it would come from unfortunate circumstances around this lawsuit, I progressively, as I hear more things, I feel like I'm watching the case fall apart for 2311 and FRM. I also heard about that breach of contract, again, not knowing whether it's true or not. It may be something that is true. There potentially is a clause in there that we're not all specifically aware about. And maybe it's just talks right now. Maybe that's why that tweet was deleted. There's a lot of unknowns. I think there's a lot of things that we still are yet to discover about this case. But it seems like it's falling apart for 2311 and FRM at the moment. We'll see. At this point, like I said, they've had enough time to settle where I think they would have if they wanted to. I don't think NASCAR wants to. If NASCAR wins the case, I think 2311 and FRM are probably going to fold. Especially FRM. 2311, Michael Jordan might be able to keep the team afloat for a little bit. FRM, I mean, they have been, a B team or, what you used to call an underfunded team for quite many, many years. I mean, even since Reagan won their first race with them, the 34 at Talladega in 2013, they have always been considered the B team, the underfunded. And I think this next gen platform has given them a little bit more life than what they had with the Gen 6. They certainly had some talent. They had a handful of wins, right? I think Reagan won at Talladega. McDowell obviously won the 2021 Daytona 500. You had Buescher won I think it was also the 34 car at Pocono in 2016 in a race that was shortened due to fog and visibility. And it's a shame. They've been a staple in the sport for a long time, even though they haven't maybe been that A team. They've got new life. They've got a technical alliance with Penske now, and I think they have good young talent, but it is just going the wrong direction for them. I don't want to comment too much because I don't want to put anything out there that's going to get misinterpreted, especially with the situation being a legal situation. And I think, again, the fact we don't know everything about it. but it is becoming more and more evident from everything that I hear that NASCAR is most likely going to win this case. I don't really know how much of a hand that 2311 and FRM have yet to play. I think if Tyler Reddick is truly suing for breach of contract, then 2311 actually may have more ammunition to go after NASCAR, saying it's, he's suing us over this breach of contract because of everything that's going on, blah, 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 blah. At the same time, I could see it being very easy for the court to say, well, you could have just signed the document. And that be that. So, we'll see. Like I said, it's a very convoluted pool of information that comes out every now and then. And I feel like when it rains, it pours with the information. We've got a few more months before that trial does happen. And I do think we're either going to get a very restructured sport, or we're going to see a really big team and a long-running team probably end up folding, and those charters, those 6 that were revoked, probably either being issued by NASCAR or going on the market for bid by NASCAR. We've heard in previous years there's definitely desire, there's definitely interest. Much quieter on the lawsuit side. Rick Ware Racing is still facing a lawsuit from Legacy Motor Club. And, you almost wonder if Legacy's that other team. Hey, rather than go through all this, we'll get a new charter and then we don't have to worry about it. We can, drop it, basically. I don't know what the investment was on their side and whether or not those transactions were made, but there may be a way out for that lawsuit with those two teams if NASCAR's just willing to issue a new charter. Those charters could become key for a new manufacturer, whether that's Dodge or another manufacturer from the Stellantis group, or if there's a different manufacturer maybe that they're in talks with NASCAR is, if that's, Honda, I know they've had a lot of rumors around them. If they want to come over and take a chance in the Cup Series, Junior Motorsports, you have to wonder, they finished 9th in the Daytona 500. They had a pretty good showing. Does Dale Jr., Kelly Earnhardt Miller, did they finally want to take it to Cup, right? This could be a serious opportunity for a lot of different people. I think the end result will be residual. I think we'll see it play out over the course of many years to come. I don't think, we're going to see this end, immediately just because the gavel hits the judge's desk. That's not going to be the end of it. So I'm very intrigued, to say the least. I am probably a little too uneducated in the law sector of this to make any sort of super intelligent comment. But from the things that I do know, it's definitely going to be a really sloppy situation. We're going to see a big long-term effect come out of this case one way or the other, regardless of who wins. And I definitely am intrigued to follow and see it through. It'll definitely make for a lot of off-season stories, that's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And I think the risk for NASCAR, what they're risking here in this lawsuit, I think ultimately is probably control of the tracks, because they're, under their umbrella, of course, which was International Speedway Corporation, of course, and then they kind of absorbed that, and now they just outright own the tracks. And then probably they would go away from the charter system, I think. That's what's been said in the trial, I think. And then for 2311 and FRM, of course, they're risking more because that's their entire livelihood as a business, which, yeah, I agree. FRM probably shutters. I feel like there's a scenario where Michael Jordan wants to stay in NASCAR and maybe he just gives in and buys a charter outright or something to stay in the sport, because I think NASCAR they should have a presence with Michael Jordan in the sport. I think, I think his presence is hugely important to be in NASCAR and all that. But of course, they did say, I mean, the name was redacted on the document, and I guess it could be anybody, right? And people were theorizing online saying maybe it's Dale Jr. and they're talking to him, which would be hilarious. Pitting Dale Jr. against 2311 and Denny Hamlin, of course, his podcast boss there. So yeah, that will be an interesting storyline to see play out here in the off season. And hopefully it's not the end for both of those organizations. I mean, it'd be really sad if it was, but we just have to kind of, I guess, like you said, wait and see how it goes. And yeah, I'm right there with you with the, I guess, understanding of the law and stuff. It's something you can only read about. I mean, I'm not really that knowledgeable about legal proceedings and all of that. Obviously the engineering background there. So for me, yeah, we'll just have to wait and see what the latest piece of drama that leaks out from that. And then, if Denny and Michael Jordan are, very headstrong and going to trial in December, I guess we'll see and watch the legal proceedings take place there. So, yeah, that would be a lot of risk for them if, they do go to trial. But, yeah, enough of that. Before we go into, I guess, the playoff preview discussion there, one bit of nugget that I found after we talked earlier, I saw that there could potentially be a doubleheader in the Phoenix weekend, the Spring Phoenix Cup race weekend there, with IndyCar potentially going back to Phoenix on their schedule next year, and I guess they're going to have a doubleheader on that weekend, which I think also already includes Xfinity and on that Saturday, and then Cup on Sunday. So yeah, that'd be good for that series. They need more ovals, and I guess it would greatly help them with their ratings and attendance, with fans being there and stuff already for the weekend. They can just get another race in there. So yeah, that would be good there. Maybe Kyle Larson can do another double of a kind there, racing the IndyCar and NASCAR in the same weekend there. So on the same track potentially. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, just wanted to throw that one out there. But yeah, for the playoff discussion now, of course, we've talked about it earlier, kind of alluding to it there. The playoff field, of course, Kyle Larson seeded number one. I think he's number one because he has more wins than William Byron there, but they have the same amount of playoff points there. Of course, the other thing that we didn't mention with the discussion of all the points and stuff is the fastest lap. Of course, Kyle Larson was able to get a lot of playoff points through that fastest lap, able to do it at, I think, Watkins Glen, Mexico City. I'm forgetting, there was another track that he got the fastest lap in, Kansas and Homestead, I think, where he got the fastest lap. So that ended up being pivotal for him there. So that allowed.
So I've got my Twitter list right in front of me. You got Coda, Kansas, Mexico City, and Watkins Glen.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So those are the four tracks, and yeah, definitely made a difference for him there to get the number one seed. So yeah, William Byron second in there after winning the regular season title. Denny Hamlin, of course, most wins other than SVG at 4 wins. That, even though he finished in 6th in the regular season, that puts him up to 3rd to start off there. So he's got that going for him. Ryan Blaney at 4th place, Christopher Bell, Shane Van Gisbergen, Chase Elliott, Chase Briscoe, Bubba Wallace, Austin Cindric, Ross Chastain, Joey Logano, and then the 4 guys that are on the outside looking in for this first round, Josh Berry, Tyler Reddick, Austin Dillon, and Alex Bowman there. So I guess we'll start off the round of 16 here, I guess, who we think will be on the outside looking in after Bristol here. And I mean, there's a lot of ways that you can go with this. I mean, I don't think Austin Dillon will make it through. Just don't think he's shown enough on speed throughout the season to make it through that. Josh Berry, on the other hand, I mean, he's shown some speed at times, but largely hasn't really been consistent enough to like truly be a factor that I think could move on to the next round there. So, and then you got Reddick and Bowman. I think Bowman gets through, and I want to say, I don't know, Tyler Reddick, he's been he hasn't had the same pace that he had a year ago in that car, going from, winning the regular season championship to 14th in the playoff standings. That's a huge swing in pace, and they just haven't had the speed or the luck, really. They've only led 153 laps this year in their season, so they just haven't had the same pace that they did a year ago. So I almost want to say he's out, which then that leads to the round of 16. Who who would be that fourth guy. And a lot of people think maybe SVG won't be able to make it in there, but yeah, he just needs to score like a 20th place finish. Really, like you have to think his points in relativity to that cut line, and he's what 2052 or 2022 points, and
16 above the cut line. That's a pretty decent gap,
it's decent
given the amount of parity we've had this year.
Yeah, exactly. And I think with Josh Berry, I mean, depending on where Berry runs these next 3 races, it's a fairly comfortable gap, especially if they run next to each other. Like he could be okay to make it through the round of 16. And Darlington's a tough track, Bristol's a tough track, but on the other hand, he finished okay-ish at Darlington in the spring. Gateway he's never been to, but I feel like that track kind of races kind of like a road course, so that I don't know if that'll help him, but certainly the mentality that you have on a road course may apply to Gateway there. So I think SVG gets through, and I'm gonna say that Bowman makes it through, but then Austin Cindric, I don't think Austin Cindric has been that good throughout the year to make it through the round of 16. So I'll say that Cindric is out of there. And those 4 drivers, Cindric, Reddick, Dillon, and Josh Berry, failed to make it through to the round of 12.
So I just took one of my my lovely. This is not a bill, luckily. I'm gonna keep track of all of people I say who get eliminated in these rounds, because I'll be honest, I think with as crazy as a season as we've seen, really, in the amount of parity, right? We've seen drivers, right? At one point, Byron was up almost a full race in the standings, fell all the way back almost half a race, and then regained it all. It's been a very volatile season as far as points go. Obviously, we're looking much shorter term than we're looking in the case with Byron, right? That all occurred over the course of almost 10 weeks with William Byron. We have 10 more weeks this season, and we're playing a 3-week game every week up until that last race. I have to put Austin Dillon and Josh Berry out in the first round, unfortunately. Listen, Austin Dillon, he's great at Richmond. He has not really shown much speed literally anywhere else. He's got something figured out with Richmond. He ran amazing there in 2021. He ran amazing there last year. It was unfortunate that his dominant night there last year was shrouded in so much controversy because he decided, after his pit crew mucked up that last stop, that what he was going to do was basically just run into anything and everything to win that race. But he deserved to win, not in that context, but just because of how good he was there last year. Won it the right way this year, so good on them for that. And I'll be honest, I'm happy for him that he got that redemption moment. That whole team got that redemption moment. That being said, they just don't have the speed pretty much anywhere else. He ended the regular season, I'm going to refer back to my Twitter account here, 26th, the worst of all of the playoff drivers this year. I cannot see him making it past this first round. Berry, I think Berry was off to a really great start this year. That got that early win in Las Vegas, week 4 or week 5. And he has a stage win. He ran fairly well most of the first 10 weeks of the season, but basically went on a colossal downslide ever since. They're a good team. They have the equipment and the driver to make it into the round of 12. I don't think they have it all together right now at this point of time to where their momentum's going to change in a favorable manner. They're already going in at a deficit despite it only being 1 point. We have seen so many of these eliminations come down to a single point. So I have to say that Berry's my other guy. There's no way I can see him moving past this first round. The next 2 slots is where I start to have a problem. And a lot of it is driven out of how much parity do I want to take into account? How much performance do I want to take into account? I would almost put Austin Cindric in this position automatically if he hadn't had a win at Gateway last season. I wasn't expecting that win. What's not to say he can do the same thing that Austin Dillon just did a few weeks ago at Richmond, except this time it's a playoff race. There's more benefit to that. Bubba, I think a lot of eyes are probably on him. I think he's going to make it through to the second round. He's actually done fairly well at Darlington and at Bristol in past years and just gotten bit by unfortunate circumstance. They've got a lot more positive momentum swinging this year, and I think they're going to make it. SVG is another one I'm glad you brought up. I know we had a conversation a little bit before we got on air. Do not count him out. I do have him going past this first round. After his first win, I didn't. After his third win, I said, oh my God, it's possible. He got one more win after that, and I said, oh my God, I think he's going to make it to 8. So I don't have SVG. I think Ross Chastain and Joey Logano are the two that I'm watching in particular. One of them will get eliminated. I'm going to say it's Logano. Logano, just after coming off of the championship last year, has been in quite a slump. He got a win early in the season and just has not really performed the same. He's done better in points, actually, this year than what he did last year going into the playoffs. But I think that's a team that the momentum is maybe not swinging the right way. Now, they do have the opportunity to get out of that. We've seen it with Penske pretty much every year since this next-gen car has been the platform, where something turns on with them. Very similar to Tony Stewart in 2011. Something just turns on with them as soon as they put those yellow banners on the cars. But I do think, unfortunately, that will not play out for Joey Logano this year. I am going to put my other... Oof, man, this is hard. I'm going to put my other as Cindric. I do think Chastain is a little bit more consistent. Cindric was one of those drivers qualified in on a win. He finished the regular season in 15th, so certainly better than certain drivers. But I am taking into account that I think Shane Van Gisbergen has definitely improved on ovals. And I will say, even some of the days that they have not been as clean lately, they have been able to finish the races. And that is not something that every team can say. It's a little difference like that can go a long way at the end of a season. And I think the fact that the Roval is in round 2 is going to drive that team to do anything and everything they can to make it to that round.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be wild if he makes it to at least the round of 8 and there. I'm excited to see what you have cooked up here for the round of 12 here in a few minutes. But the round of 12, of course, has New Hampshire, the Roval, and Kansas. Well, in that order, it's Kansas and then the Roval. So, yeah, I mean, I think for the round of 12 here, I mean, Bubba Wallace, like you mentioned, he's had a great season for him so far this year. And I think, yeah, he does. I think he's going to make it to the round of 8 because he's done really well, I think, overall this year. But Kansas is one of his better tracks. It's a good track for 2311. You know, at one point there was 2311 and Joe Gibbs that were racing or were winning those Kansas races for a time there. So for a couple years in 2022 and 23. So we'll have to see what happens, but I think that race is probably going to be a key for him to make it. And he has improved on road courses also since they've started being more road course heavy in this series. So yeah, I think he makes it to the round of 8 there, and yeah, then it gets a little harder. I think Chastain, for as good as he's kind of been throughout the regular season, obviously his season kind of turned around after the Coca-Cola 600, 40th to 1st there. So I'm going to say he gets eliminated here in round of 12. I said Logano makes it to the round of 12, but I think he doesn't make it past. I don't think he's going to have the same stroke of luck that he had last year at the Roval to make it through that round. So just hasn't shown enough speed throughout the year to really convince me that he can make it through that. So Chastain, Logano, and then it starts to get tough here because we eliminate some of these drivers here. But Yeah, I'll say Alex Bowman is for as much as the consistency he has this year in terms of top tens. Yeah, I can't say he makes it through the round of 12 here, and then yeah, it's gonna be a tough elimination here, but I'll say Chase Briscoe. I mean, they've shown a lot of speed here lately, but I think it's just going to be just a matter of circumstance here that Chase Briscoe. I mean, he's done really well since the summer started, and he's had a lot of good results, finishing in the top five. But it's hard for me to picture with some of the other drivers that we have to keep or we think could make it here into the round of 8. I think just it's going to be a matter of circumstance where something's going to happen, or they just find themselves on not as good footing, and they lose out. So yeah, I'll say Briscoe, Chastain, Logano, and Alex Bowman.
All right, sorry, I forgot to turn my mic on. I'm thinking really hard right now. The gears are cranking. So my round of 12 eliminations. I'm going to echo you and say Alex Bowman on that one. I think he's run pretty consistently. It's not quite there. He's had a few opportunities to win. And quite frankly, I could see him pulling potentially win at Kansas. But at the same time, just with the competition that they have right now, I am unsure exactly how that's going to end up going. So I'll say Alex Bowman. I'm also going to take the other winless driver to this point in the season out of the equation and say Tyler Reddick. He has run well at all these tracks before. He has not run so well at all these tracks before. Kansas is another one. He could win his way through to the next round. He's very good at the mile and a half. But to your point earlier, he just has not shown the pace. That team has not been the same this year as they were last year. And this even, he just hasn't really had it. I don't know if that's a him thing. I don't know if that's a team thing. I don't know if that part of that is just being shrouded in the controversy this year between that lawsuit we talked about a few minutes ago. But I definitely see Tyler Reddick struggling to make it through round 2 and probably not making it through round 2. Chastain, I do have probably squeaks by in round 1. I think he's been maybe just a tad bit better and a tad bit more in it than Logano, especially in the last handful of weeks. I think Trackhouse overall, with the success of SVG, is probably going to ride a little bit more momentum. Logano, Cindric had a few rough weeks. And so I could definitely see the 45, 48, and 1 car being eliminated. I'm going to piss off a lot of people with this last one. I think Chase Elliott's going to get eliminated around 12. I don't care that he's the most consistent because that's not the game that NASCAR has set up anymore. All season, anybody that follows me on Twitter has seen I have tracked points through all these different formats from the past, and Chase at one point sat atop of every single one of them. That's great. NASCAR doesn't award you for your consistency. Chase has had a very difficult time this season getting stage points. He has had a very difficult time closing out deals. They've choked away a number of not even wins, but just decent finishes. And despite being very consistent, I don't think consistency is going to be enough for him moving forward. He doesn't already have that large of a gap to the cut line. In fact, if things don't really shift too much, he would reseed 7th of 12 and only have a 1-car buffer and essentially a 4 to 5 point buffer to the cut line. So he's not really going in with much of an advantage. I just don't think that team is firing on 8 cylinders. I think they're probably on about 6 and a half, if that's possible. But I have Chase Elliott as my last one in the round of 12.
And that's a pretty wild one there, but I mean, I can see your point because, there have been a lot of races where Chase Elliott, like for example, I think Iowa, they were up front at Iowa for a good bit of that race, and then they just went mid-pack, like in the middle of it, and never recovered. They
can't pass.
Yeah,
I don't know what it is. Like Jimmy John, I don't know. For all my Jimmy fans out there, sorry, I'm going to call your driver out. Those last few years, if he got mired in the middle of the pack, his day was over.
Yeah.
Right? He just could not pass. Chase Elliott's got the same problem. I don't know what it is. All of his teammates go from back to the front frequently. This guy can't pass. I have no idea what it is. I don't know what to even chalk it up to. I know there's been a lot of heat on Alan Gustafson on Twitter. I don't know that it's necessarily his fault. I think Chase has made mistakes. I think the pit crew's made a lot of mistakes, which is very uncharacteristic if you look at their record from like the last 3 or 4 years. There's something off with that team, and I think they're going to get it handed to them.
Yeah, I don't disagree there. And I mean, there was another race, I think Michigan, where they were up front at Michigan and then fell mid-pack and never recovered. And you make an interesting point there with Jimmy because I think Chase has talked about it too, just the driving style. This car is a car that you drive off of the right front, not the right rear. And I think Chase has been one of those drivers like Kyle Busch who just haven't really adapted that well to the next-gen car. And that's kind of led to kind of the struggles that he's had. You know, he had a decent year in 22, missed the playoffs, of course, was hurt in 23, and then, you know, last year kind of recovered, but, you know, didn't really show too much throughout the year there. So, yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, I have him going to the round of 8 just because I think Hendrick cars go to the round of 8 other than Bowman, but I wouldn't be surprised if that happened because, you know, again, it's all about these playoffs. They're about the right set of circumstances that lead you to Phoenix in the round of 4 or the championship 4 there. So that would not be surprising at all, despite him having the best average finish of all drivers this year at 12.0. So we'll have to wait and see there. But now the round of 8, Las Vegas, Talladega, and Martinsville there, which very interesting combination of tracks there. And Talladega, the round of 8, which almost kind of, I mean, you have to feel like they'll race kind of similar to, I mean, we've seen it already in years past, but I mean, it'll kind of be what we saw Saturday night at Daytona, where kind of a wild card there. But I think for that round, I mean, Bubba Wallace, I mean, again, great year for him so far. They do well on mile and a halves. That's kind of been Toyota's bread and butter for the last couple of seasons. But yeah, I just don't see him just being better than at least half of these drivers to make it into the championship 4 there. So yeah, I'll eliminate him there. Chase, yeah, I think he gets eliminated as well, just, you know, based on, you know, him being unable to be clutch in throughout the season, failing to capitalize there. And I think, this is gonna be tough, but I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of ways that you can go with this, but I'm gonna say that Christopher Bell doesn't make it to the round of 4 this time around, which is an interesting decision. But, you know, they, in terms of wins, like, they had that stretch where they won 3 races in a row and they haven't won anything since. And I mean, yeah, they've had great, you know, runs and stuff, great consistency throughout the year, but I feel like he's just been, you know, even with his performances over his career since the next gen started, he's kind of been one of those drivers that kind of yo-yos throughout the year there. But yeah, I'm gonna say that Christopher Bell doesn't make it into the round of 4, or the championship 4 there. So that leads to the last one, and I'll go different here. I'll just say, I mean, I want it to happen, but I think this is where the train leaves SVG at the playoff. You know, the playoff train leaves him there at the station there. So I just think it'll be too much for him. Las Vegas might, because, you know, he did kind of well at Charlotte. Talladega, I mean, there could be a scenario where he up front at Talladega there. Martinsville, you know, is another short track where I think road racers tend to do well at, based on previous, you know, generations of road racers in NASCAR. But I think it's just going to, he's going to have too much going against him to make it there to the championship 4. So it'll be an interesting storyline if he does. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. I'm curious to see what your take is on that. But yeah, I think just the amount of talent that he's going up against, Larson, William Byron, Denny Hamlin, Blaney, Bell, Elliott, you know, Bubba, all those guys, as good as what he's been able to make a case for and everything. I think just the fact that he's kind of behind the curve on that, I think this is kind of where that playoff point advantage kind of runs out on him here. So we'll see. And I mean, we think that he's going to win the Roval, obviously, but I remember talking to a friend about this, and he was like, "Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they tried to wreck him at the Roval or something like that." So it would be unfair, right? But that could happen. Maybe somebody decides to be nefarious and be like, "Nah, we're not letting this guy just if he makes it to the round of 12, we're not letting this guy go through to the round of 8 or whatever and continue on." But I do think, I'll say I think he wins the Roval, just to make that clear, regardless if he's in the play still in or not. I think he's going to win. So, it's really hard to make a case for him to go on to the championship 4, which, if he does, it's going to be incredible if he learns enough, or he's just going to have something incredible happen to him where he either, quote unquote, lucks his way in, or somehow wins his way into the championship 4.
Yeah, this round is really hard for me. Talladega, I think this is about the latest the second Talladega race has pretty much ever been in the season. Not in context of date, but in context of how many races left there are to go. And certainly since the elimination style playoffs have begun back from 2014, it was always a staple, really, of the second round, that round of 12. For a few years there, even as the elimination race prior to the Roval making its entrance into the world. But you have a really interesting group of racetracks. Las Vegas, high-speed 1.5 miles with a lot of room, a lot of different lines and opportunities to race, both your competitors and racing the track. We've seen fuel mileage be a big factor in those races. Talladega, the crapshoot of the playoffs, and Martinsville, which I think, while we've seen really one driver kind of dominate the fall race in the last few years, you have to wonder, right? You can only do that for so long before those dominoes topple over. So, that being said, my round of 8 eliminations, probably pretty interesting. I agree with you. I'll start with SVG. I agree with you. I think he'll be able to win the Roval. I do question, after what happened last year at Martinsville with, the team orders and the manufacturer orders, if someone were to essentially order a hit on maybe his car rather than SVG himself, but if someone were to order that, they would have to do it in a pretty inconspicuous way prior to race weekend, so that could not be tracked. If NASCAR were to find out that's what happens, you could make me believe they would put SVG in the round of 8 as a 9th car. Right? Shades of 2013 and the MWR scandal. But I agree with you. I think SVG, regardless of his status in the playoffs, probably wins that race. The only driver I could see potentially challenging, given how well SVG has run on road courses this year, is maybe AJ Allmendinger. That AJ Allmendinger doesn't always perform very well at the road courses, but man, he's got that Roval under wraps. That is his place. In Xfinity, won the Cup race last year. He can do it. That being said, I think the momentum runs out on that 88 train, right? It has been an amazing season. You don't just win 4 races by luck. Say what you want about SVG. He's talented. Yes, I think something is skewed. I don't think it's him. But I do think this is where his luck runs out. I will say, and I want to make this very clear, just because I have him penciled in to be eliminated here does not necessarily mean I don't think he can't make it to Final Four. There is a world that we live in that he can. If you notice, at almost pretty much any point at any Cup race he has run at Daytona or Talladega, he has been near the front. In fact, he led laps this past weekend, was in the front for a short period of time at Daytona. Quietly seems to run well at Talladega. He's run into some issues with wrecks and such. But it's not impossible to say he could find himself in the right place at the right time on the last lap at Talladega. And now with this new car, the way they have to race Martinsville, there's more shifting, which SVG, I think that's probably what makes him so good at the road courses, the care he uses in using the clutch, which I pretty much seem to have gotten that most American drivers have phased out of their driving. They don't really tend to use the clutch too much. And the way he uses the clutch, and the fact he even uses the clutch at all, seems to save those rear tires. That could be a big advantage at Martinsville. And if I recall correctly, statistically, he actually runs pretty okay over there as well. So it's not all for loss. He can make the Final Four. Just because I have him being eliminated doesn't mean I don't think he's capable. And that would, I'm sure, cause quite the controversy. We've had a few of those the past few years with how the format is. A lot of fans have been vocal. But I have SVG. And then a slew of Toyotas. Denny Hamlin, Chase Briscoe, Bubba Wallace. Bubba, he's had a great season. It's probably been one of his better years. Got that win at Indianapolis. He's run fairly well at a handful of different points throughout the season. He's actually looked like he can win multiple races at certain points this year. They ran wonderful at Miami for a good portion of the race. Ran well at Richmond for a good bit there before a mistake kind of undid their day. They've had multiple opportunities to win or be in that top 5 picture. Not all of them have played out. I think that can probably be said for most teams. I think the momentum on that train is probably going to halt in the round of 8. He could do well at Talladega. He could do well at Las Vegas. I think subjectively, the competition he's going up against at this point, though, probably is his undoing, regardless of how well he does. Denny Hamlin and Chase Briscoe were both really difficult for me to pick. Chase Briscoe has been on a tear, and in the last, I want to say 7-8 weeks, he has shown me he is a championship contender. He had a lot of good runs. One at Pocono, did very well at Sonoma. Has had a handful of really strong runs in some weeks between then and now. He is definitely stepping up to the plate in the last few weeks with Joe Gibbs Racing filling that seat for Martin Truex Jr. I don't think this is their year. I think they're still finding their footing, but I do think they are proving themselves to be championship contenders, not only this year, but in years to come. And I do think he's on a better path with them than he was with Stewart-Haas Racing before they folded at the end of last season. Denny Hamlin, I mean, you got to give it to this guy. It's so hard at this point to not have him in the Final Four. I do think in the last few weeks, they've sort of lost a little bit of momentum, particularly the last 3 weeks. Daytona, in my eyes, was a really big one, right? Obviously, Daytona being a little bit of a crapshoot, but one that Hamlin is very acquainted with and seems to do pretty well at. Got caught up in an early wreck that undid his day, so we don't really know the strength of what he could have had. But this playoffs, right? I think if you think about where he is in his career, he has eclipsed the 700 race mark. We kept hearing about for a good bit over the summer, right? Once you hit that, you only have so many wins left in the tank. I think he's gotten 2 since then. You have to wonder, right? He's been so close so many times, and it has always just come undone in the last stages. I don't know if it's written in the stars for Denny Hamlin to ever win a championship at the top level of NASCAR. And I think, again, with him as an owner potentially being shrouded in some controversy in the coming weeks, I don't know where his attention is going to be at. Because in October, he may very well be suiting up to face this trial as an owner. And I think that very well could be an undoing for him. The 11 team, I will say, pretty decent summer stretch. Hasn't quite fired on all cylinders since they won that last race at Dover. But to me, he was probably the hardest one to not have in the Final Four of these 4 guys.
Right, so yeah, now that brings us to the Championship 4 race here at Phoenix, which I guess that basically leaves for me, I've basically just the top 4 in the standings. I'm thinking that the top 4 in the standings as they stand currently are going to remain the same when they get to Phoenix here. So yeah, fairly top heavy there. So now it just leaves one of those 4 drivers pick a name basically, but no, not really. I mean, all of them I think can make a case because Larson, of course, has won the championship. Blaney has won the championship before at Phoenix. William Byron has ran really well at Phoenix here in the next gen era. Denny, of course, the guy who hasn't won the championship. So you really could go any way on this. And I mean, even if you look at the spring race here as an indicator of what this could look like, I mean, Denny finished second here to Chris Bell, which I think that ended up being a fairly close finish anyway. Larson finished in third there. Byron started on the pole, led 83 laps there, finished sixth in that one. Then Blaney was, where was he? He was trying to look. Yeah, he was in 28th, so he had an engine failure in that one. So, I mean, really any of those guys could win. But, I mean, if I had to pick one of them here, I mean, I think William Byron probably, to me, out of those four, given the way that Phoenix races here, with just the lack of passing in general that we've seen from Phoenix. I mean, it depends on the tire, situation there. If they bring a tire like what we saw at Richmond, maybe that changes things up, makes it a lot more interesting there on strategy. But at the same time, it could really go any of those drivers' way. And I mean, I think it's just Byron will somehow figure out a way to be up front when it matters. Denny, I mean, it's just I agree with you. I don't know if it's going to happen. I mean, I'd like it to happen, but just because I think he's done so much for the sport and everything, but it's just really hard to say because he's just never been in that position to win. Blaney, I mean, I think he's had a solid year, and I think he can make it to the Final Four. But it's going to end up being a matter of circumstance and strategy for him, I think. There, but Larson, on the other hand, he's been, very up and down throughout the year, and basically since the double attempt at the Indy 500, just hasn't had the performance that we're used to seeing from him. But I mean, he's had, to me, it's more of luck because he had those issues at Sonoma and at Watkins Glen. Obviously that was a problem there with the brake failure or issues that he had there. Mexico City getting taken out, not of his doing there, by Kyle Busch. So I mean, there's honestly a situation where just because the lack of performance where they could get eliminated in pretty much any round other than the round of 16 if it plays out the way his season has kind of gone. But I mean, I think he's still good enough to get to the championship four, but I just don't know at this point, if based on speed, whether they're better than the 24. So I'll go with William Byron here winning the 2025 title, and I guess maybe breaking the cover curse of being on NASCAR games because he's also on the cover with NASCAR 25.
Well, I think it's funny you mentioned the cover curse because three of my final four are on the cover. I've got William Byron, I've got Ryan Blaney, Christopher Bell, all three of which will be cover athletes. Byron, of course, being that main one front and center. But I've got Byron, Blaney, Bell, and Larson. I do believe in breaking curses because I don't have Larson winning the championship. I completely agree with you. Larson, he's an exceptional talent, but ever since he attempted the Indy 500 double, something's just been off. They've been very good and very hot some weeks. They've been very terrible and cold other weeks. There's been some inconsistencies, and quite frankly, I'm a little surprised they finished as well off as they did in the end of the regular season. He's absolutely capable of winning the championship. Phoenix in this car does not seem to be his forte. He's capable of running well. I don't know if it's going to be well enough to end up taking home the hardware at the end of the day. Bell, I feel like every year we're talking a little bit more about Bell, and it's making it a lot more difficult to deny the fact that he, at some point in his career, is going to win a championship. I will say one of the reasons I have Bell even getting this far, because I don't think his performance as of more recent, maybe the last like 6 weeks, has really spoken to me as, wow, this guy's going to be in the Final Four. One thing I do think that he plays to his advantage, he's really good at these flatter tracks. And I think you have one in every single round of the playoffs. You've got, you've got Gateway in the first round. You've got New Hampshire in the second round. Martinsville in the third round, and then you go to Phoenix, which he's won, I think, 2 spring races at. So it's getting so hard to justify not picking Bell. That being said, I don't know. They haven't really, to me, screamed championship winners. I would actually argue in more recent weeks, the 11 and the 19, specifically Briscoe, has sort of had more championship form than Bell. I think Bell, given where they're going, probably has more opportunity than Briscoe. But I still don't know if it's going to be enough. I really like William Byron, and I do believe he's going to win a championship during his career with Hendrick Motorsports in that 24. But Ryan Blaney is doing the same exact thing that Logano did in 2022. And he's doing the same exact thing that Blaney did in 2023 when he won the championship, and last year when he finished second by car length and a half in the championship. They had a really difficult start to the season. I was really questioning how far in the playoffs could they make it. And all of a sudden, you get within a few races of the playoffs, and it's like a light switch flips. Let me put this into some context for you. Ryan Blaney is the only driver to score stage points in all of the last 9 stages in the NASCAR Cup Series. He has not finished, let me just make sure I'm doing this position work right. He's not finished worse than 7th in any of those stages. The second closest driver is Ryan Preece, who in the last 9 stages has been in the top 10 6 times. And even in that period of time, has not really accumulated a candle's worth of points compared to what Ryan Blaney has. Blaney has been on an astronomical tear that somehow, some way, people aren't talking more about. Basically, since the race at Indianapolis. And it is scary, because it is exactly what they did in 2023 when they won the championship. It's exactly what they did last year, and this is the momentum that Team Penske feeds off of. They are not always great in the first 2/3 of the season, but damn, you get to that last third, and it is game face from everybody at that organization. I think the added effect, too, of the fact that I have pretty much 3 Penske cars, the 2, the 22, and the 21, despite being Wood Brothers with their affiliation with Team Penske essentially being the 4th car. The fact that I have all of them out in the round of 16 gives Team Penske the opportunity to put everything toward the 12 car. They're already on a tear, and coming off the momentum now of winning the Daytona race, having 2 wins in the regular season, in a regular season where, quite frankly, nobody's pulled away from each other. I have to go with Ryan Blaney. The history, more recent history speaks to it. What he's doing this year speaks to it. I know they struggled a lot with mechanical things. I think he had 2 or 3 engine failures in a pretty short period of time. Phoenix, Homestead, and I want to say there was one other one. But they're turning it around. He is 3rd overall in stage wins entering the playoffs, second only to Byron and Larson. And Blaney, definitely, if you evaluate just those 3 drivers, has been doing a much better job over the course of the second half of the summer, which is when most of those stage wins have occurred. I know Byron is regaining his momentum, and I think this year he will probably end up finishing 2nd, which I think progressively that puts him 1 spot better almost every year that he's been in the Final Four. But I have to go with Blaney. I think recent history and how he's doing as we enter the playoffs is enough indication to me that he should be the favorite.
Yeah, I mean, I get your case there, and I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if that happened there. But yeah, there you have it. ultimately pick William Byron to win the 2025 NASCAR Cup Series championship, and Joe's picked Ryan Blaney to get his second NASCAR Cup title here in his career. So, of course, I think, truthfully speaking, I mean, the way that they kind of design these playoffs to work, I mean, pretty much anybody other than Dylan, Josh Berry, and Cindric, I think there is a path where they could all reach Phoenix. In a way, the likelihood of those guys getting all there, other than the four that we've both mentioned, I mean, it takes a lot of circumstance, and I guess that's what the appeal is to NASCAR and having this format, as people talk about the playoff system there. But having said that, the first round of the playoffs is at Darlington with the Southern 500. We've also got this weekend the Xfinity Series and the Truck Series. Xfinity racing the they're actually not at Darlington this weekend, they're at Portland, so that's a mistake on me there, thinking there's a triple header, but so it's just Cup and Truck at Darlington, and then Xfinity there over at Portland, so that'll be interesting. But the first race of the weekend, Sober Slammer 200 at Darlington, so I guess this is the first playoff race here for the Truck Series there, so I guess make our picks here for that here. I mean, to me, there's really anybody else besides Corey Heim winning this race. It's just really hard to envision anybody else winning this race. So I'll just stick with the guy that's been winning basically everything here in the Truck Series. And then I guess my wild card here for this weekend in the Truck Series. I don't know. It's really hard because I don't really watch the Truck Series that enough to know who's a really good wild card. But I guess, I don't know, I'll pick Ben Rhodes here as my guy. He's the first guy out on points here for the Truck Series playoffs. So yeah, I mean, he's a guy that could go either way here throughout this final so many races here in the Truck Series. So yeah, I'll go with those two guys.
Yeah, I don't know how you can bet against Corey Heim at this point. He is ridiculous good. It's almost a sin that he is not in Xfinity this year, because he's performed relatively decent in his very few Cup starts. You can't go against Corey Heim. He's got to be the favorite. He's got to be the pick. I'm going to go a little bit of a different direction. And I don't really know. I mean, maybe just in the shadow of the series living behind Corey Heim, I don't necessarily know I would go too far as say this is a dark horse pick. I do think, though, someone who, it may surprise us, because I think it's been a little while since we've really heard from this driver, Lane Riggs. Lane Riggs, and the reason I'm picking him actually goes back to when I was in Miami earlier this year watching the races. Lane Riggs, he's obviously talented, just barely missed out on the playoffs last year, and I think that's going to feed into the hunger that team shows this season. And he ran very well at Miami. Darlington and Miami are interesting because they're not the same shape, right? Darlington, obviously, a little more egg-shaped. It's not symmetrical on both ends of the racetrack. But Miami and Darlington share a very unique characteristic in how high tire wear drivers experience at those two racetracks. Those two drivers that night, I mean, if it had not been for Larson, it would have been between the two of them because they put on a show. Now, Heim had electrical issues, which haven't really reared their heads since then. And admittedly, like you, Josh, I just because of work, I can't necessarily follow this series as closely as I would like to. But I think Lane Riggs would be a really good pick. He really did well in Miami. I thought he had a serious chance to win until Larson basically came barreling around everybody on the fence in those last few laps. So I'll go Corey Heim as my pick and my favorite, Lane Riggs as my dark horse.
Yeah, that's good pick there. I mean, yeah, good insight on that. So we'll just have to see how that comes to play out here. Because I think, yeah, Corey Heim, he did have that issue with, I guess, being unable to close on wins. But this year, I think he's kind of gotten rid of that and closed out a lot more often. There's still moments where he hasn't been able to close, but for the most part, yeah, obviously now with 7 wins in 18 races here on the season, been able to perform a whole lot better than pretty much any other driver there. So yeah, that's a good one there. So yeah, we'll go now to the Xfinity Series racing at Portland Raceway this weekend here. I'll pull it up here. The name of that one was the Pacific Office Automation 147 at Portland Raceway on Saturdays. So the entry list for that, pull that one up real quick. But I guess really the question is, obviously Conner Zilisch been the favorite here in Xfinity on road courses this season. I guess the question is does the with the collarbone injury, does that affect him in his ability, or are they going to have to pull in, which they haven't announced anything to this point, the sub, but is that enough for him to be unable to win like we saw him at Watkins Glen and at Sonoma, or will he just still be the same guy there? But I think for me in this race, I'll go, I guess, a little bit different. I mean, I always like to pick Justin Allgaier on the road courses because he's done surprisingly well on road racing throughout his NASCAR Xfinity career. So I'll go with him as my pick, and I guess a good wild card, I guess, in this race here based on everything we've seen. I'll go with I'm going to go with Sammy Smith as a dark horse pick here because he did have a good showing at Watkins Glen, finishing second there to Conner Zilisch there. So I feel like he's actually done surprisingly well lately on the road side of things in Xfinity.
I'm going to stick with common trend here. I'm going to put it on Zilisch. Dale Earnhardt broke his collarbone and won the pole at Watkins Glen like a week later. Brad Keselowski broke an ankle, won at Pocono. I know that's not a road course, but certainly can feel just as involved as a road course, basically the road course of the non-road course racetracks. Why not Conner Zilisch? I think he's very capable. He's probably still going to kick ass, and quite frankly, I think it was a smart move to pull him out of the car at Daytona when they did. Don't give that driver an opportunity to worsen their injury. I definitely don't think, right, that physical aspect of it may wear on him more. Right, certainly, that's a heavy, between turning the right and the left and how much resistance you get between the car. It could definitely hurt him more. He may not dominate or pull away with this race win like he has with certain others this season. That being said, I'm still going with Conner Zilisch. For my wild card, I'll stray off the beaten path a little bit more. Why not Taylor Gray? Taylor Gray, I think, has had a handful of moments this season where he's shown he is capable of winning. Martinsville's the one that most comes to mind. Of course, that ended in a shower of sparks for most of the field after Sammy Smith basically dive-bombed and took out just about everyone he possibly could have taken out. Taylor Gray, I think, is really on the verge of doing something that is good in his career. I think he's with a great team with that 54 and Joe Gibbs Racing, and he's got a lot of talent. So why not him getting his first Xfinity Series win?
Yeah, I mean, that definitely could happen, and he did have a good position there in that Watkins Glen race before getting caught up in that mess that Austin Hill created there at that race there. So we'll see what happens there. Cup race on Sunday, of course, the Southern 500 at Darlington this weekend. So yeah, I mean, for me, I'm just gonna I'll go with, I guess, the standard driver to go at Darlington. I'll say, actually, I'm going to say a Denny Hamlin wins this weekend here. A statement win to start off the playoffs here. Danny Hamlin as a winner, and then I guess for me as a wild card, I'll go outside the playoff field, and I'm going to say Kyle Busch. This race last year, of course, Kyle should have probably won this race, but got beaten out there the last couple of laps there on the restart with Chase Briscoe there. Of course, that was to make it into the playoffs there, and Briscoe went on and Busch didn't make it in. So I think they can kind of use what they had from that race last year and probably bring a similar setup or something. But I definitely think Kyle at the end probably could be in top 10, potentially even top 5 there at the end of that one.
See, the favorite to me is really hard. I've got 2 drivers in mind. They're both in my final 4. And really the reason I'm picking them is almost solely based off of their last performance at Darlington. Here's the thing. William Byron dominated that race, lost it in a handful of laps with the bad pit stop. As much as I would like to say they've learned, I don't really know if they have. I also think momentum is currently shifting in the direction of this other driver, as I mentioned not 10 minutes ago. So I'm going to go with Ryan Blaney. He actually had one of the best cars, if not the best car, at the end of last Darlington. I want to say he finished 4th. Probably should have looked at Racing Reference before I made that pick. But he did very well. He had a lot of speed. And in fact, was, I think, one of the fastest race cars at the end of that spring race, as I navigate my way through Racing Reference.
Yeah, he did lead at the end because he took the lead from Byron there at the end, and then the caution with Larson crashing again in that race, and that put everybody on pit road, and then Denny ended up coming out first, and he was able to win that race.
Yeah, so I'm going to go with Ryan Blaney. And two, on top of it being a race that I think he'd be very capable of winning. That momentum that is going in their favor right now. And it's, I don't know, maybe I'm getting a little too high on Ryan Blaney right now, but I definitely think the cards are stacking in their favor. So I'll go with Ryan Blaney as my favorite. My dark horse, I'm also going to reach outside the playoffs because I don't want it to be all about the guys in the playoffs. There's still half a field worth of cars racing outside of those 16. Again, there's 2 guys I have in mind. I'm looking at one of them right now. I'm trying to search for the other one that I had in mind. Man, that's hard. I'm going to go with Chris Buescher. Eric Jones was the other one I was thinking of. Eric Jones has won the Southern 500 twice, most recently in 2022, which was on this next-gen platform. And the 43 team has actually had some momentum swing their way in more recent weeks. Obviously, they had a phenomenal week in Daytona this past weekend, carrying the legendary paint scheme that Richard Petty once had. But I think Chris Buescher, right, this is what he did last year. I know he missed the playoffs, and they were disappointed. So what do? They go and they win a race. What better therapy is there than that? Chris Buescher ran very well here a few years ago in the spring race, and tend to run pretty decently well at these kind of tracks that are a little bit higher tire wear. Kansas is another one that comes to mind that he runs pretty good at. And I think they still have speed, right? There's been opportunities where they could have won. There's been chances for them to get better finishes than what I think the results show. Ultimately, too, I think stages have been a little bit of their undoing in the fact that they missed the playoffs. But at this point, they've got nothing to lose. They're outside the playoffs. They're not getting in. And the best cure to therapy, in that sense, is go out and win a race. And he's totally capable of doing it at Darlington.
Yeah, so we'll have to see. I mean, yeah, that's a great analysis there on Blaney potentially winning there. And yeah, can't go wrong there either with that pick. But we'll have to tune in on Sunday for Southern 500, and we'll find out. I guess the last kind of topic of discussion we'll talk about briefly. I mean, for me and Phil, we've talked about it throughout the year. NASCAR 25 course coming out on October 14th. Finally, a NASCAR console game that seems to be very legitimately produced compared to previous editions. Of course, NASCAR 21 Ignition, the NASCAR Heat games were okay. And then that company Motorsports Games took over it and really did a number on how bad a racing game could be with NASCAR 21. I actually never even played the last NASCAR console game. Didn't even bother with it because I heard it was incredibly bad there. But that was just a really bad game. But now NASCAR 25 being produced by iRacing Studios here, and seems like a lot of influence coming from iRacing.com, the game now with that. So they've done a lot of announcements here. They've announced the cover athlete. They've put out some screenshots. They haven't really produced any gameplay video yet here, which kind of curious to see what that looks like. But it does seem from at least the driver reviews, and I guess you do have to kind of take that with a grain of salt because it is PR in a way. But I mean, why wouldn't they say anything really bad about it? But we've seen a lot of drivers that have tried out the game say positive things about it. So it does look like a legitimate effort here and everything. Gameplay is like the one thing, and I guess other people game influencers or NASCAR in particular, people who are known in the community for gaming, have also said positive things and everything. But I guess I'll throw to you on this from your point of view. I guess following the news around it. What's been your kind of overall take? And I guess I'm assuming you're also looking forward to playing this game here with it coming out in I guess a little over a month.
I can't wait. I am so over the moon about the fact that we are getting a new NASCAR console game. I, like you, Josh, I didn't even bother to play NASCAR 21 Ignition. I had it on pre-order. I was at the time, debating whether or not I actually wanted a new console and so forth. I ended up canceling the pre-order. I'm glad I made that decision, because from anybody and everybody who ever spoke about it to me, the game seemed like the worst thing that had ever happened in the modern era of NASCAR. That's a little bit of an over-exaggeration, but nonetheless, it didn't really feel like people wanted to play it. It felt like it was maybe a cash grab for a specific market, and it didn't really seem like it was there. That being said, when iRacing acquired the licensing to produce this game, from day one, it seemed very evident and very clear to me that they were very serious about the production of this game. They cared about the production of this game, and they understood that with their reputation in the sim racing community, that they needed to produce a good game. Dale Earnhardt Jr. has even, as partially the owner of iRacing, has had an investment in this video game, and he's even talked about it. In fact, I don't remember quite what was asked. I was in Anderson about 2 weeks ago for him to run the late model race over there for the Cars Tour, and there was a fan on pit road that I was standing nearby, and they asked him something about the game, and you could tell just by the way he answered it, he was excited. And if he's excited, that makes me excited, right? He's a driver. He knows what's up. And I think the details, while they have in some capacity been a little slower to leak out, right, to your point, there's been no serious gameplay of this video game. We've seen a few screenshots, some of which are published images, some of which are images of a screen. I have to say, I'm liking what I'm seeing so far. I'm liking what I'm hearing so far. And while it could all be a farce, right, a lot of it, to your point, Josh, probably PR, there is something about this that feels like the people making the game actually care about it, which makes me feel like I care about it, which makes me want to play it. I caved. I bought a brand new current generation console, just so I could play this game. I don't have a PC that's capable of running really any gaming. Maybe in the future I'd like to get, that's probably, in fact, my next purchase rather than getting a console ever again. But, That's how excited I am. I spent $500 on a new console. I would imagine that says something about where I feel like I'm at. I'm very excited. I think it's a good step in the right direction. Regardless of whether or not the game itself is any good, I think the amount of care that iRacing Studios has clearly made it known that they're putting into this game is incredible. They've released their driver rosters. I love the fact that they have part-time drivers. I'll be interested to know whether or not those part-time drivers, right? We see, like in the Cup Series, you have Allgaier in the 40 car, and the Traveler Whiskey car for JRM. I'll be curious to see in game if I play in a handful of different races. Are they only going to run in the Daytona 500, which is the race they actually ran in, or are they capable of qualifying into any race, right? Right, and little details like that, right? How attentive are they being to that? Will I see, two different 78 cars in the game, right? I don't even know if there are two 78 cars in the game, but right, am I going to see Catherine Legg and BJ McLeod run the same race at the same time? That I might not like as much, right? Lack of attention to detail. If they don't, that's pretty good. I'm very excited. I think there's still a lot of unknowns around the game, and we've only got a few months before the release, right? I think you just said it's only about 2 months.
Less than that.
Actually. But I'm very curious to see what happens with the release of this game and what overall the reception is. I remember them talking about, the developers, about a 3-year plan that they wanted to essentially take the games to a certain point by the time they finished producing their 3rd game with NASCAR, which to me tells me this is a long-term investment, which I also love. I'm very curious just to see what the first game comes out with, right? They've got 4 different NASCAR-owned and sanctioned series, a variety of great racetracks. They've got an album or a playlist, whatever you want to call it, that is really cool. I mean, the fact that Breaking Benjamin reached out to them after their success with Diary of Jane being in, man, what was that? NASCAR 06. Wow. Man, that's wild. That's a long time ago. But, right, it's little things like that that show their care and effort, and I'm very excited to see what the final product is.
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited for it too. I will have to buy a console, I guess, regardless of being excited for NASCAR 25, since I lost my console in a thunderstorm recently here in Florida. But yeah, well, we'll see about that. I mean, it's also coming out on Steam eventually. It's not coming out at the same time, unfortunately, but it is going to be on PC, so that may be an option if I'd like it to be. But yeah, I mean, I'm excited just because of the, I mean, I've played iRacing for years. I'm familiar with it and everything. So, I expect a lot of the things that we've had in iRacing to kind of be there in a way. I mean, I think it'll be very NASCAR centric from that perspective, obviously, but just the attention to detail that they've put into this, and I do like that they've said as driver traits, like you're going to see things like Kyle Larson running the high line, the AI Kyle Larson running the high line at places like Homestead or Bristol, or I guess even Charlotte. That's another place where he kind of runs like that, and everything. So yeah, very specific driver traits that we're going to see throughout this game. So I think that's probably like the one thing is making it true to life from that regard. I think, the I guess career aspect of it, the career mode aspect of it, I'm very curious to see how that plays out, and everything. They did say that the features, I think, were limited. Like you weren't going to see like a lot of like, I guess, free agent moves or anything like that from the perspective of the career mode. So I'm interested, curious to see how that will play out in that experience of progressing throughout your career. What the game looks like, or I guess the series looks like from inside the game there. So, excited for all of that. Yeah, again, on October 14th here on PlayStation 5 and Xbox next or current gen consoles, like you said. So yeah, very looking forward to that. And then I also, they, in addition to that iRacing, they said they're going to release an IndyCar game in 2026. So very curious to see how that plays out, because they haven't had a game in an extremely long time, and they had that debacle. Same company that NASCAR 21 Ignition Motorsport games, they had a complete debacle of the full or console only game for that never played out, and led to stuff with iRacing losing their licensing there for a year and a half, and then they finally got it back last year and everything. So now iRacing producing a console game for that series. That's pretty good. I think, yeah, both series, NASCAR, IndyCar, I think both desperately need a really good console game, similar to like what F1 has had for last had so many years, since 20 at least, where they've had really good console games that were fairly good amongst that fan base. And I think for the impact that has on fans like us and new fans, or people that are wanting to get into NASCAR, I think having a good video game out there would help with that, because that definitely, that's what got me into NASCAR, is playing NASCAR 98 or 99 at my friend's house, and playing Dale Earnhardt Jr. That's literally that's the page one of my origin story of NASCAR fandom there. So I definitely think for kids or people who fell out of NASCAR and they see this game, I think they'll want to buy it and try it out, and maybe that'll be their path into playing NASCAR games there and everything. So yeah, I mean, with that, I mean, that's basically the end of the show here. Didn't really have anything else to mention on here. I guess for me, well, I guess we should start off with you. I mean, let us know where we can follow you online on social media.
Actually, before we wrap this up, do you mind if I say one last
Sure.
thing? So, I've been on the show a handful of times. I've enjoyed every single time. So, anybody that's not already listening to the Grip Strip podcast, do it. Why not? If you're a motorsports fan, do it. You'll enjoy it. Anybody who has listened specifically to the shows that I have been on, and I remember one very distinct one. I don't remember exactly when it was. I want to say maybe it was around this time in 2022. But there was a year I was on around this time of year, or maybe a little later in the year as we were wrapping up the season. I got on, and we, the three of us, you, me, and Philip, we had a very serious conversation about where we thought the playoffs were at. I don't remember quite what your opinion was. I seem to remember Philip was pretty high on the 2011-13 playoffs. He liked the wild card system. I know he definitely wanted it down to like 10 drivers, a much smaller playoff field. And over the course of the few shows, I feel like my opinion's been pretty consistent, maybe changed a little bit, right? I defended the playoffs in this rendition of what they have, of stage points, of, which while I don't necessarily agree with stage racing, at least stage points awarding points for overall performance in the middle of races, because I don't think you can have, the fact you can lead 399 laps and then crash out is ridiculous, but, that's how racing goes. I don't know what happened. Somewhere around halfway through last season, silently, I feel like I began to observe different things, different patterns, and some of it, I believe, does derive from the parity we see from this next-gen platform. Logano went out and won the championship last year, and nothing against Logano because he exploited the system for what it is. I didn't like it. He is a talented driver, and he deserves every single one of the championships he has because he raced the best given the set of rules NASCAR imposed in those years. He deserves every single one of the championships, and you won't convince me otherwise of that. That being said, I don't like the fact that a driver who, last year, I don't even remember where he finished the regular season. It wasn't in the top 10. I don't even think it was in the top 13. In fact, it was in the playoffs. scathed by a round on a technicality, and then went on to win the championship, was a little disheartening. Now, I don't say that in the means of he didn't deserve the championship. He did, because everything fell the way it needed to, and right, Penske, I mentioned this earlier, especially with Blaney this year, just heats up at the right time. But that's all you need to do. All you need to do is run the last third of the season well, and you're all of a sudden capable of winning the championship. SVG, I'm sorry, but he should not even be in our conversation of being a championship contender. He's an exceptional talent and races well at the road courses, but one discipline of racing in a multifaceted, disciplined motorsport should not be enough to call you a championship contender. As the years continue to go on with this playoff format, I feel like I'm hearing fans more. I, for as long as I have defended this system, am growing more frustrated. After Logano won the championship last year, I took it upon myself, which I'll make the tie-in now. If you don't follow me on Twitter, you can go ahead, follow me at Passero Jr. That's Passerojr. I took it upon myself on that account where I post all the stage updates, the top 10s, the stage point updates, and try to give fans the most up-to-date live running of the point system in a way that I feel is certainly more clear than what TV throws at you. I decided to take it upon myself to basically do the calculations for every single point system from 2003 from 2003 until now. So the full season championship from 2003, the original version of the Chase from 2006, the second rendition, which was not really a big adjustment, from 2007 to 2010, the wild card format that most famously Tony Stewart got his way in on the wild card, went on to win the championship 2011 through 2013, that format, and then the elimination style format. I used 2016, the point scale, just because we run less cars than we did in 2014, but overall it's the same. It would all work out the same. So I call it 2016, but you can call it 2014 through 2016. And then, of course, today, the stage racing, 2017 to 2025. I have had a lot of fun doing this experiment, but if it's proven to me anything, there has to be change. And I want to say that before the playoffs start, because I want it on record that my opinion has changed. I don't want to get to the end and, you have a guy like Shane Van Gisbergen. Listen, if he wins a championship, he wins a championship. That's it. I'm not going to be mad at him. I'm going to be mad at NASCAR for creating an environment where exceptional talent in a majority of the season lives in mediocrity can win the championship. That's not acceptable. Mamba Smith put on his Twitter account something about the fact that it's not about awarding the best driver and team. That's ridiculous. Like, open your eyes, Mamba. A championship in any other sport is about awarding the best team and the best driver. They face the pressure naturally, and naturally the team that overcomes that pressure is the best. Not by pigeonholing them into a situation that puts them in a pressure cooker. That doesn't show you who the best driver is. That shows you who is maybe the best at handling stress. That's not right. That's absolutely 100% not the right mentality. And if that's the mentality that everyone at NASCAR is on board with, they need a wake-up call. And maybe this is it. Maybe hearing a fan who loves this sport but's pretty pissed off about the state of it right now, maybe that needs to be their wake-up call. I've turned off a number of races this year, more than I think I have total in the last 15 years, because I am growingly becoming more frustrated with this sport that I love and I pour a lot of money into as a fan every year, whether that's tickets, merchandise. I care so deeply. This is a passion of mine. It's not even an interest. It's a passion. I love it. I want it to succeed. And that's part of the reason that when things happen, I sometimes do get as frustrated as I get, like I am right now. Something needs to change. The playoff format, the car, something. I will say, from following the points this year, there is a reality where we can have a full season like 2003. Right now, per the standards of the 2003 Winston Cup Series point standings, Christopher Bell would sit atop Chase Elliott by 10 points with 10 races to go. That's really close, especially by the standards of that, in which the winner got 175 points and you basically incrementally took anywhere between 3 and 5 points away per each position. It's been relatively interesting to follow. And so the 2004 to 2006 standard, right, was that the top 10 drivers would make the playoffs, plus anybody within 400 points of the leader not already in the top 10. Now, that never played out in real life. 2004, 5, and 6 was just 10 drivers. With the next-gen car, the parity it's produced, and the way this season has played out, you would actually have Ross Chastain qualified as the 11th driver for finishing within 400 points of the point leader under that point system. 2007 through 2010, that system was a little bit more mundane. 2011 to 2013, you had a relatively intriguing battle for the wild card. And I will say, I really like the idea of reintroducing the wild card system in some capacity. I hate the fact that if Cody Ware won this weekend, he would have been in the playoffs. And he led laps! We were joking about that during the race, Josh, and he led laps.
He did.
On Earth, right? If he had won that race. There has to be some sort of restructuring to the playoffs, right? At this point, I don't even know if I care if it exists or not. I will say TV would never get on board with that, and NASCAR, I think, would lose a lot of support from the TV and the media side because they would have probably a little bit less to talk about. That being said, I am starting to buy into the idea that there has to be a restructuring, if you can't tell. So for anybody that doesn't want to follow me, if you want to hear more of my thoughts, I'm sure by the end of the season I will have more. I'm following all these point systems on Twitter at Passero Jr. Again, that's PASSEROJR. I will post about them every single week. I do the updates every single week on my Twitter account. They've become threads that have exceeded 20 posts. Because that's how much fun I'm having doing this experiment. It's going to be a wild and interesting playoffs regardless of what happens. That does not necessarily mean I'm going to agree with everything that happens. But remember, don't hate the player, hate the game.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely, man. Yeah, I 100% agree with you there. And I mean, me personally, I do remember that conversation. I think I said that I wanted full season, I think, in that one. But I mean, yeah, I've never really liked this playoff, elimination system format that we have and everything. I mean, yeah, I could buy either the original 2004-06 system or the 2011-2013 with the two wild cards. I think those are the two systems. If we were going to have a format, those are the two ones that I'd go with. But what's to come of this playoff committee thing that they've been trying to look at to adjust things and everything? I don't know what's going to happen. It just seems like TV or NASCAR is beholden to the TV stakeholders and all that stuff. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting discussion here, I think, in the off season as we kind of progress through it, and depending on who wins the championship, if it's another situation like where SVG somehow wins the title, or even if Logano somehow wins the title again, or anybody else. I mean, if it's anybody but the top four, I mean, or maybe six guys in the standings, you really have to start questioning things, I think. So, yeah, I mean, it's a whole nother, I mean, we could probably go on for another hour, 2 hours on this topic. And then I think a lot of other tangents that kind of spring off of that. But yeah, I mean, as for me, of course, follow me at JP Huffline on Twitter, of course, where we'll be talking about all the racing stuff, including this weekend, of course, and NASCAR, of course, and also football's coming back, college and NFL. So be talking about the Gators and the Jaguars, of course, on there. And then on Twitch, of course, you can follow my Twitch channel at usailor2 on there. Of course, be streaming any iRacing action on there. I think this weekend we got Talladega 87 cars on there, which I might be trying. And then next week we got So I'm doing a special event, doing the 6 hours of Indianapolis, which mimics the real life IMSA event, happening in a couple of weekends up there, racing in LMP2 class there. Ran the Rolex 24 in LMP2 and feel comfortable in that to try that class again, so should be able to do that hopefully. So I've already partnered up with somebody, so just got to get in some practice laps and figure out the schedule for that, I guess, and strategy for that. So we'll go through that, and then of course our page, Grip Strip Podcast on Twitter, YouTube. Pretty much find us on anywhere at this point. We're on pretty much all the podcast platforms: Spotify, Apple, Amazon, Google, wherever podcasts are. You can find us on there, of course. And I'll plug in Philip G. Matthew at PGMSP28 at that name on Twitter, of course. And you can again follow us on YouTube or and any of the other social media platforms for this podcast and everything. So with that, hopefully we have a good weekend of racing, of course, and we'll definitely be talking about it offline. Definitely be talking about it next week when Phil returns here on the Grip Strip Podcast. So with that, I'm Josh, and for Joe, everybody have a good night.